Epic played an epic TVT versus Foxer, but now faces one of the bosses of the Americas. In the bottom left, it is Epic, and his opponent is none other than Scarlett. Still on the Shopify Rebellion. She is absolutely one of the favorites to win this entire open qualifier. I will say that she is not a favorite to win the closed qualifier. In fact, I'm having a very difficult time even thinking of who is the favorite. You could go into the default Koreans. Koreans win, right? Like, no one blames you if that's who you bet on anymore, even though it's not necessarily as accurate as it once was. But if Scarlett were to advance all the way to those finals, win the finals against whoever it ends up being, she would join the likes of Stats, Bunny, Shin, Showtime, Alazer, Lambo, and Firefly in a closed qualifier double elimination bracket, of which then 2 would advance to the Esports World Cup. So this is simply step 1. Like I said, I don't know who actually is one of the favorites there. All of them can beat all of them. But speaking of all of them can beat all of them, Dear Dragon, there's a lovely saying, anyone in NA can beat anyone in NA. And that has proven rather true across the board. I think Neeb was a little more invulnerable when he was playing. I think... Yeah, actually, I think it's all. Scarlett was one of the ones who could take down Neeb. Otherwise, he kind of dominated everything else. But, of course, towards the later stages of his career, he had his own kind of hiccups in the regionals. But for a lot of the America's StarCraft 2 history, you would have absolute favorites. Scarlett is undeniably the favorite here. No one is questioning that. But then you would look at the other guy and be like, nah, they would never win, right? And they'd win. Or you'd look at their match history and you'd be like, oh my gosh, Scarlett's actually lost to this guy way more than I figured. She would continuously be playing StarCraft 2, and then someone like Masa, who kind of comes and goes with the wind, would come in and 2-rack her and she'd lose. And she's not the only one, but I think, you know, kind of combination of Zerg maybe having some vulnerabilities because of the whole larva dynamic, although Cyril doesn't seem to have any problem. The NA just kind of game, the weird games that play out are hard for a professional, you know, with their expectations. Yeah, he just kind of sacks the Reaper there. I think he was going to try and bypass the Queen. That would have been kind of cool, but it doesn't work out. But yeah, you have the Zerg race, you have the way that North Americans play that really throws off people who are trying to play to that, like, top 0.0001% play. And then you do have, I think a lot of the top tier NA players, you know, sometimes they're in Korea, sometimes they're out of the tournaments. And so the results have not always been strictly standard. Scarlett wins everything, Neeb wins everything. Trigger wins everything, Estrella wins everything, you know, whoever the top dog is, they actually have vulnerabilities. That also makes them, across the board, I would say, the America's representatives are also some of the best players for punching up. And that is true for the players you don't see as often, like Epic, who might be able to punch up versus Scarlett. And it also is true for Scarlett, who is considered potentially one of the greatest, but she really has to be on form. So if she were to go up against Maru and she beats him, you would consider that punching up. And she can do that occasionally. She can really pop off. In this game, it looks like she's trying to just get a little bit of roach protection. Not going to let the game slip away to something silly. Epic is 3CCing into a 1-1-1 with Banshees and Hellions on the way. Very standard stuff. The roach number actually was a bit higher than I expected. Fortunately, Epic did see this. And they saw also how they were positioning themselves. The Hellions also see that it is still slow Zerglings. So that was a really great scout, despite the Hellions dying for ultimately what was 3 drones. The scout was arguably worth the sacrifice. It saw that it was going to be an attack, so the Banshee now knows where to, you know, well, it looks like the Banshee's going to play it kind of dangerously, but the Banshee could just be looking for the roaches. Yep, exactly. It was looking for the roaches. And you know that's not an all-in, because those speedlings weren't going to come and follow this up. So you have all the information you need. Epic actually still a little hesitant to believe that. Speed possibly could have finished as those Hellions died. There could have been more roaches about to pop. All the roaches on the left side could have been turning into Ravagers. And so it does play it a little bit safe, but thank goodness bunkers are salvageable, right? It's a bit harder to over-defend as a Terran player than, say, a Zerg, who can be caught in a very dangerous position if they don't drone appropriately. Two Banshees having figured that they're properly protected by the roaches. Clearly Scarlett wasn't going to commit to them once they were found out. Plus there's still a bunker and 2 Cyclones. Then decide to do what they do best, which I would say is generally go after the 4th base. And they do actually manage to find a cancel. That, if that's the only thing they find, that sometimes is normal. The fact that they find a creep tumor is actually kind of good. Of course, Banshees want to find a queen. They want to find some roaches. They want to find the drones. And they want to find more than one cancel if they could. But ultimately, we know that Banshees are not really supposed to do damage. Say that, and then Clem kills 10 drones, and okay, whatever. But most of the time, you don't have that many high expectations for them. So using them to then defend any attack points or against a potential big roach swell, very, very useful things to have. And Scarlett could be 1-1 roach all-inning him for all he knows. Epic does not have the full information. Very difficult to achieve that. Literally get into every nook and cranny and see that they're lower on drones, or they do have or do not have the infestation pit. You see the infestation pit, that's kind of a major sign, if not the sign, I suppose, that you usually can see, that they are not all-inning you. Again, if you could see all of the drones and all of the technology and those other signs. But if Epic could get into that natural and see that, he would have a much better understanding as to the game state. Currently, those Banshees have seen very few army units, but they absolutely could be growing the Roach Ravagers over to the right side. So again, if you're going to play cautious, like Epic already did versus those early Roaches, then you're going to continue playing cautious. Epic should be 8-raxing, and he absolutely is. Great. So he is 8-raxing on one of the, if not the best 8-rax map that we've had in a while. I feel like initially it wasn't just the 8-rax map, but over time it has become very clearly the 8-rax map. And Scarlett, I guess now that I've talked about what Epic has to be concerned about, let's flip the script here and talk about what Scarlett has to be scared of. Certainly, she should know the 8-rax is very likely. She actually is kind of scouted. Not completely, but if she default assumes, she's absolutely correct. And so while the Hive looks like it's a dangerous thing to grab, in reality, if you can do that seamlessly, and aside from a couple of roaches that didn't end up doing anything, this has been a rather seamless TDZ, then fantastic. You got a maxed out army with some upgrades and Vipers. That's fantastic. This is a very dangerous push here from Epic, but you kind of got to go. You know, there's a downside and an upside to both being super aggressive and not being aggressive at all. Here we go. The Banelings finish up, and that's why Epic needed to be careful about being aggressive. Many of those Banelings did end up connecting, perhaps not enough. Epic taking the gamble, as Scarlett did as well, basically. Oh, God. Terrible time for my body to dysfunction. But that is a risky play on both sides. Epic got diving very hard on a creep. He actually didn't kill all the creep tumors to try and find the pre-Baneling timing. And then Scarlett had all her Banelings finished and thought, okay, now's the time to go for it. You lose all your Banelings, and there is still a decent amount of bio left over. You can be in an extreme amount of trouble. Epic, once again, letting more Banelings than he should have actually hit his army, and that is going to be the kicker. He could have pulled back a bit more. He could have spread out a bit more, and instead, he does get overwhelmed, and that is the ticket. I'm not going to say that's all you have to do as a Zerg player, because that's really reducing the difficulty of defending an 8-rax. But when Epic is playing that tile and doesn't really take that time to clear up things, bring on more tanks, is clearly going very bio-heavy with all the Marauders, getting that momentum to stop is really critical. And for Epic, unit retention is still necessary. It's, you know, it's kind of weird saying that with someone going on 8-rax, because they actually have a surplus of Marines very easily, actually. But you know, the whole point is that you want to have 80 Marines, the Banelings connect, and then you barely have 30 Marines left over, but then they have no Banelings, and then they're screwed. it still is happening because the 8 racks will keep chugging along, but that was a very important respite. Can I use that correctly? For Scarlett. She rebuilt the Lings, Banelings, and has always had the Ravagers. Viper now ready to go as well. This is a much better split, however, off of Creep through the choke as well. Epic needs to consolidate his forces, get back here. Medivacs are out of juice as well, however, and that is hurting too. More Banelings coming along. Split on the right side is going to be good. Left side, I believe that bio will win. Starting to lose some Ravagers here. Scarlett maybe over-attacking just the littlest bit, and that's all it takes versus the 8 racks. Here we go. This is the problem. Any amount of bio left over with the rest of it trickling in, and if you don't have Banelings, you're in a lot of trouble. Widowmine's going to explode, not on anything in particular, but I think that's actually better than exploding on the Marauders like it was about to. Tank also survives. One too few Ravagers thanks to that overextension, and Scarlett is looking to lose Game 1 versus Epic. She gets one pushback. And I still would say that is very important. But the next time she tries to push the army back, that is when the trap actually activates. That Terran trap of, oh, I'm retreating, oh, I'm getting connected by Banelings, like, oh, I don't have enough. Oh, just kidding! Everything consolidates together and you realize the power of bio. Epic would be winning, I think, for certain if he had a couple other things going for him, such as 2-2 rather than just 2-1. +3 has also never started, but in a bit of an odd twist, Epic did prioritize a 4th base beyond any of that. Scarlett's Roach Ravager just simply isn't that good. Liberators do get hit by the same corrosive bios, less than nice for Epic, but I think his bio is pushing through anyway. It's been 2-1 versus 2-1 this entire time, so despite missing that crucial second upgrade, Scarlett was also missing a defensive upgrade, or sorry, an offensive upgrade. If you are going to miss one, that's usually the one to miss. They both did what they should as their races to prioritize. It's just usually the Terran would have 2-2. It seems like this might be over. Scarlett not tapping out because she has so many bases. She has so much of the map, but she took a bad fight, lost her third. That might have been recoverable. She then proceeds to take another bad fight, thinking that she might be able to take it, and ends up losing it, and that's just something that you can't do that when you're trying to recover. But it is a difficult game to assess. You know, there's one part, okay, if I play defensive, maybe I can come back, and another part, well, if I am so scared that I'd never take any opportunity to kill the Terran army, then I die regardless, right? And that's pretty much right, but it's, yeah. It's a tough game to call when you've already made that mistake. You've already let the Terran kind of break your spine, you know? Scarlett needs to go into a prison somewhere in the desert, get some inspiration, somehow fix a broken back without any medical help whatsoever, and then come back as the Dark Knight. And it couldn't happen in that game, but perhaps between games, she can go ahead and quickly do that. But I am surprised, I gotta say. I thought Scarlett was in a really fine position leading up to the 8 racks and actually initiating. She had a lot of creep spread, doy. She had a maxed out army. She had hive technology. She actually had Adrenal, by the way, too. That finished for a lot of those battles, but they never really got highlighted. Epic made a macro mistake. He also made kind of a micro mistake. He didn't clear up that creep ASAP. I thought that was going to hurt him. I think it did. But then it didn't hurt him enough. Scarlett still ultimately falling behind, not able to truly nip that in the bud. If you're just tuning in, this is not a mistake. Epic looking as convincing as a top-tier Korean Terran. With last game's performance, he's now up 1, spawning in the top right of Crimson Court. In the bottom left, we do have Scarlett. I will have to withdraw my my Epic intro. Okay, Epic did make some mistakes. Maru, Byun, Pure, Bunny. They could probably do a better ARAX. And that's, again, not to try to keep these NA folks down. Get down in your place. No, it's just, it is the truth. You know, there were some mistakes. But if that is if we're looking at Epic's mistakes, we also have to look at Scarlett's mistakes. And Scarlett did end up overextending. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly where she had to pull back versus attack. I would not do any better of a balancing job. I can tell you that much. And I can also tell you that even with the best possible balancing act, That is one of the most difficult maps for one of the most difficult builds. But she did, at the end of the day, make too many mistakes. That's why she lost. Is it powerful? Yes. Is it imbalanced? I don't think we can say that. I certainly can't. I'm not in a position to do so. But at the end of the day, Scarlett also let that map through. And while this has generally been called a more Terran-sided map than previous map pools, Terran-sided map pool, you know, that might be the most potent combination that I see in the last couple of months. Last map with the 8 racks. Does it ever lose? That is the question. Is it the new 2-3 racks? I never see this build lose. It's so good. Maybe. But she did let it through, and she did take her lumps there. Gotta shake it off. Play as good as we know that she can. If she would like to stay the overdog, as cats would say. Evolution chamber instead of a spore crawler. I think the evolution chamber versus the Reaper can also help the body block it a little from chasing after more drones. Scarlett did go for a gasless, faster 3-hatch build, figuring that Epic is not a guy who would 2 or 3 racks her, and I think she's actually very right about that. I think Epic, like any increasingly good Terran, you know, you get your good macro, you get your good micro, you get your good build orders, you get your good player understanding, like you know how Scarlett plays, you know how Trap plays, you know, you've been in the scene long enough. Then there's all the other stuff beyond that, right? And one of those things beyond that is taking aggressive builds if you're a macro player, or taking macro builds if you're an aggressive player. Making sure that you're fully rounded. And I think Epic does still lean more on macro. If this was... I'm not even going to say Maru anymore, because Maru hasn't seen the 2 racks a whole lot, but he might versus Scarlett, because Scarlett has... One downside about Scarlett being more vocal than some other Zergs about her frustrations is that then people know what she's frustrated against. And that doesn't mean that she always loses against it, but, you know, when someone makes a clan tag, you know, about Adepts, what is Protoss going to do to Scarlett? Adept her. If she thinks the 3 racks is really powerful, what are you going to do against her? You're going to 3 racks. But maybe not Epic. I think this was Maru. The other Maru. The Maru. That is Masa. His real name's Maru. If Masa was in Epic shoes right now, I gotta believe 100% would have gone for the 2 racks, but this actually might be the next best thing. Nice block there from Scarlett. That was almost a disaster. Epic realizing that she has opened with some greed. The queens were going way far out with the creep spread and tried to go and take advantage of it. But quick thinking, Scarlett already with a wall with the Roach Warren was gonna get the evolution chamber, I think, anyway. But it did also coincidentally time out with the wall, and then brought the rest of the queens forward. Nicely done. Another 3CC for Epic, by the way. I did say he was macro-oriented, and that's indeed what's happening. So Scarlett, correct on the call here to go ahead and greed in the early game. Might be even a little bit more well set up for an instance in 8 racks. Now, I'm going to say that because that's what killed her last game, but I'm not actually sure that will be Epic's plan. It is a very different map. That doesn't mean that you can't 8 racks on it, but the combination of last map is really what makes that so scary, alongside any amount of practice that the Terran has given to an 8 racks. You know, if they can execute an 8 racks well and there's nothing else that changes the course of the game, that shit is scary. And there wasn't much that changed the course of the last game because Epic played a very safe opener, as he does once more. So Scarlett was going to try and kind of get to wrangle the game under her control with those roaches, but didn't get the opportunity to. So then it was just straight up macro for both sides, and Epic's macro was clearly good enough. I think that's at the very least what he's hoping for here in this game, and so far so good. Scarlett is once again going into a roach-based play, skipping that speed. The question is whether or not she won ones on this map. So Epic might 8 racks on this map because it worked once, and this is still an 8 racksable map, sure. But now the issue is that the Zerg player might be the one to be the aggressor, and so far that's what I'm seeing. Now, the +1 missile was weirdly late. Didn't actually see exactly why, but just a second evolution chamber wasn't down. But I'm not seeing a Baneling Nest. I'm not seeing an Infestation, but I am seeing a supply block. Scarlett a little off her game. Leading up to Katowice, at the very least, I know that she was given finally time to practice StarCraft 2 after working on Zero Space quite intensely. She still works on it, but I don't know what her schedule's been like in the last few months. But that was a pretty brutal supply block, as she is 100% setting up for a 1-1 Roach all-in, with her +1 missile also really late. It is going to be the Nidus Worm version that seems to be the hot new thing. Epic really needs to be wary of the 1-1 Roach all-in. Even if Scarlett's screwing up the macro, if he doesn't know and he doesn't defend, then Scarlett could absolutely still win. Be more like a dark situation where you're like, well, this guy just got supply blocked a billion times. Oh, he still won? Okay, then. Scarlett, no doubt, being like, I can do that too. A dark specific thing. But Epic has vision, at the very least, for these Nidus Worms on the left side. On the right side, actually, is a little more vulnerable. I wonder if Scarlett's going to try and go for that. The Medivacs and Banshees have seen Ravagers already formed, a decent amount of army, and it's a map that demands the Zerg aggression. It is so short, and it condenses the map so quickly as you expand towards each other that it really does ask for the Zerg player to go for the 1-1 Roach all-in. No, this is a problem. This is a problem. That Nidus from a huge distraction. Most of the army moving that way. You can't put most of the army into the main base. You gotta protect the front lines as well, and that's something that Epic has already screwed up on. This is already too late. The Medivacs aren't part of the Marines. The tanks are properly protected, and Epic supply is not looking great, but recall that this is very typical for the scenario, and actually Epic gonna try and turn this around, but doesn't kill the Nidus Worm. Is that a mistake, or is that actually fine? It is a mistake. That's a lot of roaches popping out right there. Banshee's not even cloaked, is gonna go down here, despite the Overseer, I believe, being out of position. Epic was eager to try and get some revenge for his temporarily out-positioned army, and I think it wasn't a bad call. I don't think he wins even if he did snipe that Nidus Worm, just because he still took so much damage. But, man, I do wonder if he had sniped the Nidus Worm, would he have been able to get a handle on things? Because, you know, if Scarlett has all of her army in Nidus Worms, and they keep on getting denied, oh, there's that one that's hidden, then, you know, she has to then pop it out back at home and walk across the map. That would have given Epic a lot of time to recover. Fortunately, that's not what happened. Nidus Worms aplenty, Roach Ravager aplenty, and Epic, well, he did kind of mess up. Let's say that. I think there could have been even more attention to defending the Roach Ravager all in. You could have had bunkers, and, you know, sometimes they look really useless, I'm not going to lie, but, you know, other times they are just that assurance that you need. Obviously, the biggest thing is that the reaction to the main base was way too much. You know, I'm not going to say that you could put just a couple of Marauders up there, because what if they only attack from the front? You're going to need those things. But you can't respond to the Nidus with your entire army. No matter what's in the Nidus, you have to be able to nip it in the bud, kill the Nidus, and then focus primarily on the front lines. You can't try and split your army the same way that they do, because they have literally 60 more army supply, kind of as a default, with the Roach Ravager all in versus Bio. And Mech, by the way. Like, Mech may have had less supply, I'm not sure. Does Shannon be dissatisfied? Does she tend to be dissatisfied about things a majority of other Zergs are okay with? Or does she just feel free to say what everyone is thinking? It's a hard question to answer, because you know what talking to humans is like, right? You can talk to a person about something that you both don't enjoy, and they might say, yeah, I really don't, because you're both mutually venting. But then when asked in a serious public context, the same person might then give a lot more thought to their answer, and not just because they're trying to cover their face there, but just because they have to give a lot more thought, right? There's a difference between talking with your pals and talking with, I guess, an interview or something like that. But at the end of the day, I will say that probably just the latter. Scarlett probably. is more so saying what a lot of Zergs are also dealing with. But it still matters that she is the one that's doing it. If Cyril is actually just crying himself to sleep every night because he fears the 8 racks and he knows that it's a broken build and someday someone will truly break it, well, we don't know that. And if we don't know that, then for all we know, he is invulnerable to an 8 racks. So I think that, you know, I don't want to say that Scarlett should not say things publicly because it's better for the community and it's better for storylines and she should be able to do whatever the hell she wants. But I will say with this whole idea of like she has definitely been caught frustrated with something and then having to deal with that something a lot because people know that she is frustrated with it. I mean, absolutely the most prime example is EVP, in my opinion. The Adept phase was it was a long meta. It was a strong meta, even without Scarlett saying that she didn't like it. She abused it herself as a Protoss player whenever she would play Protoss. Neeb was her main opponent at that time as well, and his Adept micro was possibly the best in the world. But at the end of the day, she also was just, you know, more vocal about being frustrated with it. Didn't do any intros, but bottom right, Epic, top left, Scarlett. Epic, not exactly getting a taste of his own medicine, but in a way, you know. First map, it's a map that demands the 8 racks from the Terran. Second map is a map that demands the 1-1 Roach all-in from the Zerg. That is the baseline of those maps. That's what you think about when you get into those maps. Add on top of that everything that you try and think of in a StarCraft 2 game. And the first game was a little more contentious. Second game was pretty one-sided. Epic got caught with his pants down a little bit. So, Epic gonna go for another 3CC. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I would not say that's what killed him last game. Not at all. 100% not. Site Delta. I don't know what this demands. Oh, that's TVP. Happens a lot in TVZ here. We could definitely see Scarlett go for another one Roach all-in. Because she also could do it better. That much is for sure. She's clearly doing something different, though. She did not go for a gasless third hatch opener like last game. She opts for speed pretty much immediately, which I believe she also delayed in the first game, right? So this is already a difference. I feel like she delayed it in the first game. And I'm totally blanking, so whatever. Sim is on the way. Epic did not go for a starport this time. This is an extremely dangerous thing to do. Now, I was saying how Epic, if he was Masa, might have already thrown in, you know, 2 or 3 racks. Again, game 3, Masa the type of guy, especially against Scarlett, to just YOLO within a cheese. The flip is not any different. Scarlett is also someone who could have gone up 1-0 and then Roach Ravager all in. She can go to the last map and do the same thing that just worked previously, the 1-1 Roach all-in. There's other things she can do here, too, like Mass Links Wells. She could also play macro game, of course. But for Epic, by not going for the Banshees, he does take away that rather easy defense against early Roaches, and something that absolutely can help against Roach Ravager Nidus. For instance, if those Banshees were in the main base instead of the rest of the army, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But it's a gamble that seems to be worth making. Epic perhaps realizing, guessing that this was not going to be a Roach-based game. Feels he doesn't need to get them. The early Ling busts don't really happen. And that is what the Hellenes are for anyway, as long as you don't sack them. So, going right into the Marines. Not exactly into a direct 2-on-1, by the way. I actually got a lot of the barracks, then the starport. But has gone into a very strong production very quickly. Scarlett gonna get a little ling run by as the mules dropped too. It's nice timing. He knew it was a 3cc just by the way that the buildings at the front were. She's now gonna realize, you know, seeing no Banshees even float anywhere, she was already probably pretty sure it wasn't Banshees, but he actually did get spores, so that's just something you have to do before you get a full scout. But at this point in time, she knows that it was not a starport build, which means there's going to be a lot of barracks production already running, and there are going to be medevacs flying around very soon. Scarlett's drone count, really not all that impressive. I would whoa, what the hell? I think, I think Epic made a whoops-a-daisy. Besides being supply blocked, also getting 2 armories, just maybe misjudged the timing, kind of like got it faster than usual, and then also got the habitual practice armory, you know what I mean? That does kind of suck. Oh no, it transforms them before this armory. Oh, cancel. Oh well. This is a fast armory, but not as a intention. It's just part of the build. This was a very, very greedy build from Epic. The 3cc, the double engineering bay, the no starport. All things giving them a very powerful position leading into the mid-game. Scarlett is prepared for this. She did crank out those last few drones, so her drone count on 4, almost 5 bases looking as nice as it should. You can't beat those upgrades with this build. You just can't beat them. The Terran player, if they do this build and you don't rush them in some capacity, is going to get ahead there. It is going to be another 8 racks. Understandable from Epic. Probably one of the things that he's practicing the most versus Zerg in general, but if he does consider himself the underdog, which he generally should, even if he is currently tied up 1-1, and an 8 rack's going to be your best friend, I think. As far as the history goes, by the way, they haven't played each other in 2 years, but when they have played each other 4 times previously, Epic was always able to throw a couple of punches. It's a map in most of the games, or even one of their series. Scarlett should be very well prepared once again for an 8 racks, at least mentally. She's gonna try and get all the things on the ground if she can as well. So you can't really nip this in the bud, of course. I mean, if you could, that'd be great, but it's supposed to be very difficult. Epic is not just running his army face first onto creep. Nice little focus fire there. But you can definitely try and stall this out, and that's exactly what this little army is going to do. It's either going to win Scarlett the game straight up, or it will successfully keep Epic on his side of the map, giving Scarlett time to finish up something like, well, these additional lings, for instance. Run by actually starts up at the 3rd base, and this army that I thought was going to go to the natural ends up coming up from behind. Epic makes a very bold decision. Oh my god, you're so deep onto creep. Oh my god, I don't care if you're split. That is so much creep, but the Merbailings actually, they miss, kind of. Some Marines end up living. Some Marines over here, too. 7 SCVs did go down back at home for Epic, and he does eventually get broken here. Man. He made a very, very risky gut call there to just continue forward. You know, Scarlett timed that out as obnoxiously as possible, forcing Epic into that gut call. She made sure that the army was already commencing its attack when she decided to go for both a surround, I guess, as well as a run-by. That was nicely timed by her. And there's 2 choices for the Terran. Back away, save your army, lose the SCVs, and then come again later. Or do what he did, which is maybe find Scarlett a little Baneling light because she was setting up those run-bys. Unfortunately, the latter did not happen. Epic is, again, trying to just slow push it. The 2-2 is now finished up for Scarlett, so they're even on the upgrades. Scarlett still has a lot of the map under her control. Creep spread never really got deleted. Still so much protecting her bases. And this really gives a lot of time for the Zerg player to also think about how they are going to tackle this. If they're in a rush, then they're more likely to make mistakes. Ditto on the side of the Terran. And that's what Epic kind of did there. He was forced to make a rush happen and just ran super on to creep. Oh, good lord, that's a good surround. Those Marines trying to exit down the south are unable to do so, and then the medevacs do a really poor job of picking them up. I don't know what happened there, actually. It's like the medevacs picked up half of the army and said, that's good enough. Someone was sleeping on the job. I don't want to say this is entirely game over as of yet, but these are all very, very, very bad signs for Epic. Scarlett could still mess up and lose all her Banelings. Have a little Oliveira moment, you know, but if we assume she doesn't do that, Epic is going to lose. Run-by is going to be able to catch a tank as the Marines do not respond fast enough, and that alone is probably worth the lings. Not only is it a mineral versus gas trade. Oh, a second tank went down. Hell, man, that's 100% worth it. I was going to say, it also is just a matter of deleting that tank count, which is a very, very slow build with an 8 racks, because you only have one factory. Burrow's going to cause problems. Now Epic knows that there's Burrow. He's going to have to keep scans to scan alongside his attack path to make sure no burrowed banelings ruin his day. So goodbye economy. Goodbye backup economy. Scarlett now getting to Vipers, having defended the 8 racks. Kind of by nipping it in the butt, actually. I said it was, if only it was so easy, but that's kind of what she did. But also because she got to such a powerful position herself. I mean, Epic tried the most greedy build and was allowed to do it. Scarlett didn't stop him. But then Scarlett was also allowed to do everything she wanted, including all the creep spread that we know her for. That's Liberators are kind of scary. That's 5 Liberators, good lord. Guess you don't need that many medevacs, yeah. So, I mean, better that than nothing, actually. He's trying to produce from everything that he's got. Scarlett banking a whole lot of cash. Could easily remax after this if she needs to. She might not need to. This army now trying to race off a creep, forced to drag everything through those Liberators. Tank will get deleted, but, I mean, maybe if the medevacs survive? Parasitic Bomb doing a whole lot of damage, though. Whole lot of damage on everything. I don't think Epic really noticed that that was a Parasitic Bomb and a Liberator. Oh my god, so many injured medevacs. Oh god, no, the second Parasitic Bomb is going to be a disaster. No, I can see it coming already. There's going to be some fireworks. It might be the day after July 4th, but we are about to see some freaking medevac fireworks. Uno momento. Those Vipers are almost ready. They're going to gun for it. They're licking their lips right now. Get it, Parasitic Bomb. Get him. There it is. There it is. And that will be the end. Go Bluey! Epic out of options. Never got the foothold he did in the last game. And Scarlett will not get kicked out prematurely. Still has a difficult road ahead of her, but will not be upset by Epic. And she will get the 2-1. Epic put on a hell of a show. The TVT was awesome. Starts off this series with a 1-0 lead, but cannot actually close it out. So that's going to be it for that series. Scarlett will advance on to the semifinal to face the winner of Future versus Special.